Our next speaker has enjoyed a highly distinguished career that has spanned most commercial disciplines and is currently leading the two critical functions of people and process at HCL. HCL, for those of you who don't know, employs 68,000 people, and it's recognized as being one of India's leading outsourcing companies. Not only this, but it's also known as an organization that has taken the decision to commit to a business strategy that puts its employees first and its customers second. To say this flies in the face of conventional thinking would be something of an understatement. Anand will talk to us about the challenges that this innovative strategy has presented and also the impact that it's had on their staff and their customers. Anand is a highly accomplished individual, much in demand on the international speaker circuit, and I'm delighted that he's chosen to fly halfway around the world to be with us this evening. Please extend a huge welcome to Anand Pillai.
Thank you. Thank you once again. You may find it very interesting. We have a statement like this. This is our corporate motto. Just in case you thought that employee first, customer second was a HR initiative, you are wrong. Employee first, customer second is a business initiative. And the reason why we did that was to get ourselves into the value zone. I'll also tell you something that we tell all our employees, particularly the lateral recruits that we have. In fact, I mentioned this statement in our business school where we recruit people. On the first day when people join, this is what we tell them. Welcome to HCL, a company where we will not give you responsibilities, where we will not respect your aptitude, and where we will not treat you equally. Now, how many of you want to join HCL? Boy, that's a really frightening one. Well, let me give you the complete sentence. Yes, we will not give you responsibilities. You will have to take responsibilities. You know, it's an insult to the intelligence of the audience if I recruit a bunch of very highly accomplished, highly qualified, and highly capable people and then tell them what to do. That is unfair. So what we tell them is, you are closest to the customer, you are closest to the problem, you know what the situation is, you decide what needs to be done, go ahead and do it. But be very careful. Yes, we are very sure that responsibilities are not given, responsibilities will be taken, but one day you'll come to the office and you'll find that responsibilities are taken away from you because somebody else was more proactive. Now this creates a positive pressure. And the second one is very obvious. We don't respect your aptitude, but we will respect your attitude. Because when you take two people who are equally qualified, equally gifted, the difference between the successful and the not so successful is the one with a better attitude. The person who looks at every situation which has got a problem in it and sees the opportunity that is there. In fact, I always say it is that particular vision, that particular perspective that creates the leader in you. I'll give you a very simple example. Can you imagine what Mother Teresa would have been had she been born and brought up in Beverly Hills, California? Can you think what Mahatma Gandhi would have been had he been born in post-independent India? Or what Albert Schweitzer would have been had he been born post-leprosy being cured? It is the opportunity that you see in the problem. And of course, the last one, we will not treat you equally, but we will treat you fairly. To substantiate this particular statement, in the year 1985, we recruited a bunch of 45 management trainees. Today, one of them is the CEO and the president of the company. Can you imagine what would have happened if we treated all the 42 of them equally? So that's where we are. But let's step back in time and see how our transformation began. In the year 2000, we were the #1 listed IT company. In the year 2005, we shot down to the #5 IT company. Internally, that was not a problem because we were growing year on year, we were posting profits year on year, but what we did not realize is we were becoming increasingly insignificant. So that was the year in which we had a morbid introspection into who we were and found out that we will become insignificant. That is what we call, we went through a near-death experience. As we looked at it, we saw our market hitting us at all counts. From competition, we were getting hit from the employee base, we were getting hit from the business model in every way. And that is when we decided to come out with a cycle of transformation. Now, when I look at the cycle of transformation, we are not having anything different in the what of the strategy, because everybody has got a particular strategy. We had a strategy, our mission, our values were probably the same as anybody else. But when we looked at the industry that we were in, we said that this particular strategy has to be executed differently. And that is when we came out with employee first, customer second. When you looked at the industry, we were in the knowledge economy, we were in the services economy. Around the same time, I don't know how many of you also read this book, Funky Business. There is a beautiful statement there which I want to paraphrase, and that statement is basically this: the head of any service-oriented organization, or if the top management of any service-oriented organization is facing the customer, then they've got their butt facing the employee. You'll understand the rest. Because what we are doing is, in the idea of making the customer first, we are asking the employee to bend over backwards to delight the customer. While there will be immediate result of it, there is no guarantee that there will be sustainable result. So we decided to focus on the how of the strategy, focusing on employee engagement, focusing on employee empowerment and employee commitment, and we came about with a big change. We took 3 years, and now we are in the 5th year in the running. So when you look at the external focus, rather than output-based pricing, we went into input. Because the customer is not caring how many people I deploy to get a particular job done. What they were worried about is what is the outcome. So we changed the rules of the game. We changed from discrete services. In fact, the reason why we became the #1 IT company in the year 2000 was because we focused on technology. But the world out there changed into other services, and we stayed with technology. The earlier CTO who became the CIO, in fact, he said we will not enter the Y2K bandwagon because this is the only project in which the end of the project is the name of the project. We were wrong. We stayed in that, and we found ourselves becoming insignificant. That's when we said, let us get into the integrated services. And then from there, we went into complete new services as we got our customers talking to us. But interestingly, as we looked at the competition, we moved away from the Indian competition, but the big transformation came about in the middle factor. That is, rather than treating people in a factory approach, where an employee is only a number in the system, we started treating people individually. Now I'm going to give you a particular process that every company does once in a year: employee engagement or employee satisfaction. Who is the user of the data? It is the top management. Who is the participants in the data? It is the employee. At the end of the year, you pride yourself in the fact that you increase from a particular percentage to another percentage. But the employee does not get any value out of it. We have turned the tables over, and rather than running an employee engagement survey or an employee satisfaction survey, we have created an employee passion survey. So what we do is we run employee passion index. Out of the 82 known passion drivers, we have selected 30 passion drivers which are related to the employee and work, and we run that. And a participating employee, at the end of the exercise, he or she gets their top 5 passion drivers along with a list of or suggestions how he or she can leverage the passion and how he or she can make the place a better place to work. And also there is a red, amber, green report. The red, amber, green report is your passion is being leveraged moderately, or your passion is being leveraged substantially or to the full. Red, amber, green, and then tips on what you need to do to work on your passion area. Because this is based on the Chinese proverb, find a job that you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. John Maxwell put a twist to that particular statement, and he said, find a job that you love, that you will work on it even though nobody paid you for it. But because it is a job that you love, you will work on it so well that people will be very glad to pay you for it. In fact, this particular process, we own a patent on it. We've been running 3 years in a row. For the first time in known history, an IT company has got a patent on a HR process because the differentiator is where the people are. And that's the reason why we departed from the traditional model of the hierarchy system and then brought in the new model. The realization came that in the service industry, the interface between the customer and the vendor is the people. In a product-centric economy, the key to customer satisfaction, customer delight, customer retention, and customer loyalty is the product's capability, is the product's features, is the product's technology, and is the product's longevity. But in the service-oriented industry, the key to customer satisfaction is employee delight. So what we have done is brought the employee as the cutting edge in the value zone and treat him or her as the internal customer. All enabling functions service the customer, the employee. So if the employee is not happy about anything, he or she raises a trouble ticket on the relevant department that is providing the services. It could be IT services, it could be HR services, it could be finance, it could be admin. And unless the employee is fully satisfied, that particular ticket is not closed, and there are service level agreements on that, be it a computer being down, be it whatever. So the employee is delighted. And of course, the top management, in fact, this is where we got the top management answerable to the employee. Every organization, once in a year, does the 360-degree feedback. We also do the 360-degree feedback. But this 360-degree feedback of the top management is completely different because we have made it open. What we have done is we have posted the results of that onto the intranet. Now that's a very scary proposition because it's like taking your fig leaf away. But that has brought in a sense of transparency and accountability to the management, from the management to the employee, which has brought about a completely different transformation. These are some of the things that we have done as we have created the value zone. So the 4 tenets that are there, I don't want to get into the details, but these are described in a very detailed manner in the book that has come out with that same title, Employee First, Customer Second, starting from a morbid introspection, beginning with who we are, taking a hard look at ourselves, sharing that as our 360-degree process I mentioned, inverting the pyramid, getting the entire organization aligned to the employee, inverting the change, and ultimately transferring the ownership of change to the employee. We brought about the complete processes. I talked about the passion indicator, I talked about the open 360-degree, the smart service desk, and the UNI. These are the set of processes that we have done to turn the things over. How has this in turn resulted in our company growth? The proof of the pudding is in how we performed in the recession year, in the year 2009. If you look at it, all our competitors in that particular year, which was a tough year, degrew anywhere between 0.2% to 11.8%. In that same year, we grew by 23.5%. That is where our differentiator came in. And the customer satisfaction in the same year increased by 43%. The participation in the customer satisfaction index increased by 70%. Employee satisfaction, which we did until the year 2008, increased by 70%. After that, we are doing the employee passion survey. And as we moved on, the world is talking about us. We have been rated as the world's most modern management in Fortune. We've been being talked about in leading business schools. As I'm talking to you, we are a case study in over 200 business schools. All this leads us to one big question that you might ask. You spend so much time focused on the employee. You spend so much time investing in the employee. What if you invest in the employees and they leave? Because the CLO will ask, the more I train the employee, the more they become marketable. Isn't this a valid question? My problem is not that. My problem is the next one. What if we don't invest in our employees and they stay back? Thank you for your time.